think the biggest thing is making sure that you're always creative in the other aspects of your life. And
welcome back to another episode of the ZHZ Podcast. Today we have a truly special guest joining us. He's a musical powerhouse who's dazzled audiences for nearly 3 decades, performing thousands of concerts for millions across the globe.
That's right, Zach. Our guest today is none other than Shaun Barrowes. He's also a keynote speaker on the Vinci Approach, helping audiences around the world revive their creative genius for breakthrough innovation and problem solving. His Power of the Blank Page initiative is inspiring people of all ages to stretch their imaginations and relight their creative fire.
And there's more. Shaun was a top 30 contestant on American Idol Season 7 and received an Emmy nomination for his song Army of Kings. He's performed with incredible artists like Janelle Monáe, Imagine Dragons, and Lindsey Stirling. Plus, he's recently worked with Jackie Chan writing the theme song for Jackie's USA Green Heroes tour. His original song, Being Awesome, has garnered over 450 million views on YouTube.
Man, we're thrilled to have Shaun with us today to share his incredible journey, his current projects, and his future plans. We'll be talking about his New York Times best-selling novel, The Paradise Planets, and its accompanying soundtrack, which is an album, but we're going to get into that later. Without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. Shaun, welcome to the ZHZ Podcast.
Shaun, welcome to the show. We are stoked to have you on, man. Thank you for coming. Yeah. You have got to be by far the biggest artist that we've had on the show so far. And so you got bragging rights on that, man.
sounds good.
You have a rap sheet that, like, I was telling Matt earlier that I was making our outline, and I'm like, I don't think I've made an outline with that 3 pages of stuff. There's so much to talk about with you, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, go ahead and let us know, like, this is obviously, it's a music podcast, but we know that you also are an author too, and we really want to dive into that as well. But let's start with the music stuff. So how did you get started in music when you were growing up?
I had a piano teacher who encouraged me to write music when I was 14. I was getting really frustrated with playing just the notes on the page, classical piano playing. And I got tired of that, and I was ready to quit piano. And he said, you know what, let's try something different. Let me challenge you to write your own music. And something about that changed the whole perspective. It lit a fire with me. I couldn't stop writing from that point on. I wrote a whole album my junior year of high school. It was kind of how I made friends in high school, even roping in some of the choir kids to sing backups on my album, and they were the ones that helped promote it to all the kids. So I kind of went from this like nobody in school who was terrible at soccer and all the sports in like a very athletic oriented school to suddenly being the popular kid who had something. So it was that
just added fuel to your fire, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome, man. So where are you from? You said you're from Dugway, or you're born in Dugway, but where were you raised?
I always joke around. I was born on a top secret military base where I can't even get there now because I don't have the clearance. I always knew I was born for scientific experimentation.
Well, whatever they did, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So
I was like on the operating table, like one of those, like that operation game. No, I was born in the military. My dad was Army. And so we grew up in Utah, Kansas, Maryland, and Alaska is where I probably had most of my growing up years.
Okay.
Polar opposite sides of the country, right?
Right.
And then we went to Utah when my dad retired. So I went to high school here in Utah.
What high school did you go to?
Oh, okay.
Spanish Fork.
All right.
Oh, okay, cool.
The Dons.
Cool.
That's right. Yep, the Dons. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, you mentioned that your piano teacher, whatever, encouraged you to write music and stuff. What was some of your biggest influences growing up? Like we call it on the show, like our aha moment where you knew. I mean, obviously you kind of just alluded to that earlier, but do you have influences like that just fired you up to write?
I would say, I mean, listening to Journey, to Phil Collins, and to Sting and Billy Joel, Elton John, there's a lot of them. And also even like movie theme music, listening to John Williams when his Jurassic Park theme, that was kind of a pivotal year for me too. That growing up year. They always say like the year when you're 14 or 15 is kind of like the main pivotal year for music influence. And I mean, I would say even like there was this I don't know what it was, like survey or whatever else. They said like if you look at what was number one when you were 14 years old, that song is the most influential song of your life or something like that. And for me, that's Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You."
Nice.
I mean, the thing is like that actually fits because not only is that one of the most epic, power ballad vocal pieces, it's probably the reason why I went more vocal heavy in songwriting and less toward like the rock band sound and stuff, which was kind of popular at the time.
Right.
So
absolutely.
it kind of makes sense.
Well,
No,
and that led you to eventually audition for American Idol, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah, totally.
Was that what was that experience like for you?
I mean, American Idol was it was validating. I think before that, I always considered myself just a songwriter. I was and a keyboardist. So
Yeah.
I mean, like before that, I was writing for Sony Records and Universal, and I was in a rock band as the keyboardist, the backup singer, and the songwriter. And that's kind of where I always pictured myself. I was like, oh yeah, that's my spot. I'm the keyboardist, backup singer who writes the music. And then when I went on to American Idol and they validated me as a lead, frontman singer, I changed my tune a little bit. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could actually release my own album and just put myself on my own tour as a singer-songwriter.
Right on, and you did just that, man. And and you do. The validation is there. You've got your singing voice it's like butter, man. It's smooth and
Thanks.
No, yeah,
I have mad respect for anybody who will scat on an album, man. And
yeah, it's
speaks
fun.
to my soul, man. So
I always enjoy a scat, and it's a lot of fun. It is.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you're
Dig it, man.
definitely an excellent pianist. I remember watching, I think maybe it was on one of your socials or YouTube or whatever, but you tell this story while you're playing the piano, and you're telling your story about American Idol, and then you're telling your story about Sony and how you woke up in a parking lot in Vegas somewhere, and like you just had that epiphany moment, and your storytelling while you're playing the piano, because I fell in love with this video because you're talking about he would play, and then he's like, oh, and then the record companies, they'd want me to play something like this, and then he'd play up high, and then he's like, so I played something up high, or whatever. And great, you're not only an amazing singer, you're not only an amazing pianist, but and songwriter, but you tell great stories too, man. Like you're like top level, man. So
thanks, I appreciate that.
And I'm obviously Eddie is we've known Eddie since we were 16, since I was 16, because we all had a job at Lagoon. That's how we all met each other. So
yeah, Zach and Eddie and I worked at Lagoon the summer of 1991, hustling games, man.
Yep, that's what we did, man.
Nice.
So
fun.
Yeah. So so then you went from there to you started doing your own thing, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit because I wanted to take a second to spend more of our second segment on your books that you have, but you also have something that I want to dive a little bit into before we start going into the book Paradise Planets. But you also have something called the Vinci Approach.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit to our audience, what that is and what you do, because you're also a keynote speaker, and I'm assuming that has something to play with that.
Yeah, it's kind of my give back. I feel like I credit a lot of my success as a singer to my coming up with these ideas, to coming up with original ideas for the business side of it, the marketing side of it, to figure out how to get my music out there. And I've done it a number of times throughout my career where I realized, you know what, I'm doing a process that just seems normal to me. It's what I'm doing every time. I'm going through these steps in my head, and that's helping me, free my mind and come up with an idea that's different. And then whenever I do that, everybody's like, wow, you're doing something very different. How did you come up with that idea? And I'm like, and I finally figured out a way to explain the answer to that. I've been asked that question so many times, like, how do you keep coming up with these different ideas for marketing or for hustling or for the business side of it? So I came up with the Da Vinci Approach. This is kind of how I articulate that idea, that method that I came up with for coming up with the original idea for the marketing side of it, the business side, to create a new strategy for reaching that audience member that you're trying to reach. And that's the hardest part for a musician. You can write the greatest song in the world and nobody hears it. You have to figure out a way to be creative on the other aspects of our business as well. And most musicians that I've come across don't do that. They make amazing music. They might be incredible singers, incredible songwriters, and they just play the local gig. Maybe they tag along somebody else for some opening act of a tour, but they don't know how to do anything outside of the avenues that are already in place for musicians. And the problem is, if you're doing it the same way as everybody else, you're never going to stand out and break through. There's no way to do it.
Right.
You know, the song by itself isn't going to break you out. You have to have some new approach to the whole thing. And so anyway, that's the Da Vinci approach. It doesn't just, apply to musicians. It actually it's kind of universal to anybody who's trying to come up with original solutions to their challenges, to their goals, to their problems. It helps them figure that out so they can become the problem solver, the innovator,
Right. So kind of, it's almost like you break them down to a point where they understand how to think out of the box or take that approach out of the box first before kind of just doing the right. Like I'm sure, like with my music, it's not. It's my problem is all my genres. Each song has a different genre, so it makes it extremely difficult to market, especially if I'm using like ads with Meta or whatever, because what one genre targeting, it recognizes those, but then I go to put another song on, and so I my band Z Frequency, as fun as it is, it struggles to do sort of that thing, and that's the kind of approach that I'm going to have to take, is to think out of the box, like that, the Da Vinci approach. But I know that it's not just for musicians. It could be for any sort of passion or anything that you want. But yeah, I like that approach. Like are you still active with that?
Yeah, I just barely started it, actually. I just figured
So
it
it's
out.
brand new.
That's the Da Vinci
I thought it
approach
was I thought it's been around for a little while. I'm sorry.
No, it's brand new. I launched it probably like 6 months ago, and I've done like only a handful of gigs with that exact thing. I've done quite a number of speaking gigs where I was fine tuning it, like the 3 different steps. I had to figure out each step in by itself. So I've done speeches on the individual steps by themselves, and now
Okay.
I've finally got it packaged to where it's like all 3 steps. These are the 3 golden steps that'll get you there. So yeah, it's actually brand new. I don't even know if I've done more than maybe 1 or 2 full speeches of the full approach.
Where
Awesome.
can people, where can
really
people
new.
go to learn more about the Da Vinci approach?
It's just my website's thedavinciapproach.com.
Okay.
Pretty easy to remember.
Excellent.
Yeah,
And it's like is it like a
thedavinciapproach.com.
coaching service, or do you have like an online product or online course, or how does that?
It's just keynote speaking in crowds. So I'm
Okay.
really mostly like I can do workshops, but for the most part, I'm going to a conference. I'm going to a corporate event.
thing. Yeah. Okay.
And-
So like
and speaking on
businesses
it.
will hire you.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would. I'm sure you could be just filled with bookings, what just
Yeah.
businesses themselves and what you're doing.
So it would kind of seem to me that taking the Da Vinci approach into, as evidenced in your own life, is the Paradise Planets, was that kind of another way to get your music out there, or are you using your music to get this book out there, or is it a bit of both?
It's definitely both, because I guess the root of it was I wanted to get my storytelling out there. And I've always told stories with music, and I realized that my stories weren't getting across the way that I wanted, so that I wrote the book to get the stories across. So it definitely, this one is definitely a 2-pronged approach, where the book is promoting the music and the music is promoting the book, and which is nice. They actually there's that synergy between them, where I'm using the Da Vinci approach on 2 sides. Coming with original approach for just the book, and original approach for just the music, and then combining the 2. So it's interesting.
I could see where the Da Vinci approach, what I'm gathering from it would be.
Here's
that
something
outside
that's
of the boxing.
Right. Here's something that's very interesting, is that I am strictly a bibliophile, man. I love having the physical book in my hands. I love turning the pages. I'm not into e-readers. I'm not into, any of the tablet reading. I love books. And the few audiobooks that I've listened to are generally books that I've read several times so that I can have it on as background noise and not have to focus on it, because I find it's really hard for me to listen and really focus on an audiobook when, the world we live in. I had the opportunity to listen to the audiobook of the Paradise Planets because I drive quite a bit for work. I travel quite a bit. So I have long 6-7 hour stretches where it's just me in a car. And I am going to go back on my own general feeling is that this is one of those that I highly recommend that people immerse themselves in it through the audiobook, because the music, the songs that are part of the story, it's not just a song like a soundtrack, that's going on in the background of the story. They are part of the story. They are, and it's really a brilliant approach, and it's great songs, and your voice cast is just amazing. So it's not listening to one of my favorite audio. I'll re-listen to the Harry Potter series read by Jim Dale every couple of years, just because he does such an amazing job. But the voice cast with the music and the sound effects and everything, the production value is so great that it is so easy to just lose yourself in it.
That was the idea. And like you said, that was the Da Vinci Approach model of let's come up with a new thing. And I mean, it wasn't like to the point where it's so revolutionary, but we're kind of the first to do a musical graphic audiobook. I've heard of other graphic audiobooks, but I don't know of anybody who's ever made a musical graphic audiobook where songs...
Well, the Timothy Zahn Star Wars audiobooks are generally pretty theatrical, a lot of sound effects. But it's generally one guy reading, and he's fantastic, but he does all of the different voices himself.
Right. I've heard a lot.
But not only that,
lots with sound effects.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that on another layer, music itself is such an integral part of the story. It is so key to this entire world building that you've created.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that's unique about this is it is featuring musicians as the heroes of the story, the singers and the musicians, because it's all based around whoever can produce the purest sound with their instrument, with their voice. They're going to generate more power. They're going to be the bigger athlete,
Right.
And this actually, we're going to start with a track that's from all three tracks we're going to feature on today's show are all from the Paradise Planets album. But before we get into that, because this ties nicely into it, you have a concept in this book called Singing with Shaulur. Will you talk about that, what it is at its core? Because that is something that hit me and stuck with me, because any musician that's ever played a gig, that's ever played in front of people, craves moments like that.
Yeah, and I've never really, I mean, I guess it could kind of say it's like in the zone. That's the closest way to say it in English, but I was like, there's not really a word for that. When you're on the stage and you're connecting with an audience on a spiritual, emotional level, and I feel like there's every show that I've ever done where I'm really in it. There's at least one song that does that. One of my songs will be like, that's connecting with at least somebody in the audience on such a level that I am now singing it with Shaulur. That was the idea, was that I wanted to have a phrase that articulates that feeling of, like you said, every musician knows that. Like when you play a killer solo, a killer drum solo, guitar solo, when the band is just grooving on such a level where like, hey, this audience is really feeling this moment, and
you're connected. You
connect on a higher plane, with the people in the audience, and that's why people love live music. That is what they're there for, is to connect on a higher plane, and so that's called playing or singing with Shaulur. That's kind of how I say it.
And it's cyclical, because when your audience is in the groove with you like that, then their energy flows up to you on the stage, and then you feed off of that, and you feed it right back, and it just builds and builds and builds.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, so the first track we're going to listen to is "See You on the Other Side." obviously we can't give a lot of context without spoilers in the book, but I think if you listen to the words, you get a pretty good idea. But talk to us about writing this song. What were you drawing from when you penned this?
I wrote this originally as I kind of imagined what it would be like if I lost one of my parents. And so I wrote it as if that were the case. Now, both of my parents, fortunately, are still alive.
Right.
But as
I don't know that, but I know what you mean by like putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah.
That perspective. Yeah.
Exactly. You wanna be able to fully understand what someone else is going through when they lose a child or a parent, someone that's really close to them. And that's what this is about. This was kind of that either the parent to child, child to parent connection with this song. And with the interesting fact about this song is that Conlon Bonner, the lead singer of it, lost his 9-month-old baby right around the same time that he sung this.
That's rough, man.
So
yeah, that explains the
emotional power behind the
song. Emotion behind it. This is one of 2 tracks on this album that brought me to tears as I was driving across I-80, even though driving across I-80 has been enough to bring me to tears sometimes on its own. But it's this one and Ashkanatuv. As a father, I have 2 daughters, I have 2 sons, and they're all at various stages of their growth. And cruise control. Thank God for cruise control.
Yeah. No, it's something only a parent knows. It's true. Like
absolutely.
I didn't know that feeling until my kids are born, and then suddenly it's like just seeing my 5-year-old be 5 and looking at her baby photos, and I'm like, 5 years went by too fast. You don't ever get that
and
back.
Then they're 10, and then they're almost 22 and taller than you.
Yeah.
Well, all right, well, let's go ahead and play this out. It's called "See You on the Other Side." Is there any other credits you want to give to the recording process or performance processes you had with that song?
I mean, Angelica Hale is the other lead on this one, and she also nailed the song. I mean, we had an incredible choir that was on this thing, and we had a full orchestra out of Prague that played this one as well.
Out of Prague? Wow.
Yeah, we had the Czech Philharmonic play it, and then we had this whole Islander choir here in Utah, Polynesian choir, that came together to sing it. Such a cool texture, incredible singers, also hilarious guys in the studio.
Wow.
They had me laughing the whole time I was conducting. But yeah, excellent production, like just of all the instrumentalists coming together. I think this one had horns. I can't remember if we had the horn section on this one too, but I mean, yeah, lots of real instruments coming together for this production.
All right, well, let's go ahead and share it with the audience here. This is called "See You on the Other Side."
To listen to Shaun Barrowes' song, use the link provided in the description below.
All right, that was "See You on the Other Side," Shaun Barrowes' favorite track. Shaun and I were chatting. This is his favorite track on the album, and I don't blame you. It is, it's powerful. From the album, the accompanying album with the Paradise Planets, your New York Times best-selling book, which is, I'm a big fan. I really enjoyed the read. The world building is phenomenal. Like I talked about before, the voice cast is insanely good. As far as voice actors go, I think Philly is my man. That they just but really, there's just characters that really stick with you, characters that are relatable, that you feel like, if you've ever been, and especially as a band geek, I spent a lot of time feeling like an outcast, like I'm on the periphery, on the outside looking in. And this really strikes a chord with anybody that's ever felt like that. Excellent. Well, so are you involved in any
so, I mean,
no, I was going to say, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the book, how you became, like how you started that, and how that kind of, because I can't imagine, like I was telling Matt earlier, I feel like I'm like it's almost like he was like, music was super easy for you, you know. And then singing, well, after you realize that you have an excellent voice and you were validated from that. But I feel like being an author was kind of like, that was the passion in the closet that you're like, I really want to do this book thing, you know. And so tell us how that all started, man.
Yeah, I had an idea. I mean, you kind of go along with life and just have these ideas that pop in your head, and you're like, oh yeah, that'd be an interesting thing. I feel like a lot of us, especially when we're creative and the creative faucet's just going, it's just open.
Right.
We just have these random ideas of like, oh, what if I invented that thing? Oh yeah, that could be an interesting idea. That we have these ideas that don't fit within our lane, and I actually am a big believer in not staying in your lane. I don't think anybody should stay in their lane. I feel like we're born to do a lot of things, and we have this mentality that we can only be good at the stigma, that we can only be good at one or two things, and that's it. You have your skill and then your hobby. Well, I've always had the open mind, like, you know what? There's no reason why I can't pivot and do something completely different. And as I was going about one of my composing gigs in Louisiana, it was for an animated film. I was supposed to compose the music for this animated film, so the creative juices were flowing. And then I get on the airplane, and I'm just sitting on a plane doing nothing. I was bored. And like I always say, like, when you're bored, you often come up with the best ideas. You know, it's often nothing oftentimes leads to the best of something, right? I'm sitting there just staring at the seat in front of me doing nothing, and this idea pops in my head of a story and a premise, and I'm thinking, I don't know of any story that has that. You know, that sounds like a new idea. And as I looked into it, I pulled out my laptop and I wrote 25 or 30 pages right there on the plane. And so it was just this idea that just came out, divine download, whatever you want to call that, where just suddenly I had all these ideas. I'm just like typing as fast as I could, coming up with these ideas. And then when I landed, I wanted to, you know, analytic brain kicked in and said, well, has anybody ever written anything like this before? Let's go take a look. And so I researched it and I looked around and I couldn't find anything like it, where, you know, the world's powered by sound and it's an integral musical story. Uh-oh. No, it's all good. We're snow away. No, it's all good. But yeah, that's kind of, I had that idea that just popped in my head, and I always say that if you're always being creative, hey Maki, if you're always being creative, ideas just pop in your head, and I feel like it's a good idea to just run with them to see if there's something to it. In this case, I went into it, and oh Maki, you're gonna knock that over. Don't push on that. You're gonna knock that over. I decided to dive into it. I built out, you know, 300 pages of world building on this just to kind of figure it out. And I took it to an author and said, can you write this for me? Can you ghostwrite it or something?
Right.
And they read through it and said, I want you to, you know, explain it a little bit more because I'm not quite sure what you want yet. And so that was when I took it back and just wrote a draft of the book. I'm like, you know what? I kind of just wrote a draft. I think I could just do this myself. And I went through the courses of Brandon Sanderson and Neil Gaiman and all these other authors. I went through master classes.
Self-school.
Yep, self-school.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just went through all that to find out what's you know, how to world build, how to create a good story arc, a character arc, all those things. Until I did 15 drafts of this book. I wrote the book 15 times.
Wow.
Because I went through so many changes. I went through 2 different editors. I wanted to make sure that I got it right, the first book, you know. And
so
yeah.
Lay it out. I mean, you know, obviously, we can all read the synopsis on the back of the book, but in the words of the author, kind of set the stage and give our audience an idea of what this book is about. And
yeah, so I mean, the premise, one of the original ideas was what if there was a way to quantify who is actually a better singer, who is actually a better musician. Right now it's based on judges and preferences, right?
Yeah.
You just say like, oh, this guy likes that guy better, so that's all there. You know, Simon Cowell said he's a better singer than she is. You know, I mean, what if there was a quantifiable way to say this person generated more energy based on their vocal power? So that was like the original premise idea. Then what if we turn that into a sport? What if you could actually have vocal athletes who were the LeBron James and the Pelés and the Lionel Messis of the world were singers, you know, and you could, you know, you had these competitions where you could see the better singers winning, you know, against a team of lesser singers,
almost
based on
like
the
a sport.
Yeah. So I created created a sport called Aquasfera, and Aquasfera is this underwater sport that's vocal powered, right? So I had these really fun ideas that's kind of come to me where now I wanted to create a world where there was an intergalactic power struggle, because now I wanted to have multiple planets. And I had these 4 planets. So there's Earth plus 3 other planets, and called the Paradise planets, because I always wanted to have like a utopian society where there's actually hope in the world, where it's like, hey, you could just go to the utopian society and they have it all figured out. And then there's the dystopian Earth. That's not really dystopian. It's just futuristic, kind of more realistic futuristic, where it's like that kind of in and of itself is a bit dystopian, just because we're all idiots. And so we screw up everything. That's what we do. So yeah, there was just this idea of having a power struggle going on, and then you have this kind of aristocrat who is born into everything, oblivious to the struggles of the other side, and she's kidnapped and brought to the other side, and has to have that moment where she's got to learn how to be one of them. And not only will learn how to be one of them, but there's a transformation of being from the aristocrat to the revolutionary. You know?
Become a better person because of it.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot of themes that I've always wanted to hit on, and the beauty of this, it took me 4.5 years to write it.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah, I was pulling together like all of my favorite ideas that I'd want in a story. Like what, I mean, then I read all my favorite books again, and I pulled from a lot of those. Like my favorite thing about Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, the best series of all time.
Yep,
Lord of the Rings.
Tolkien.
Yeah, Tolkien, and what I loved about it was the friendships. And so I wanted to create the friendships in mind,
Right.
That bond of like, and so all the characters in my book are based on real people. And that way I can like, they have that, there's a real connection to each of these characters. And I think about them like Adonis was my best friend in LA, and his name was Juan. And we did everything together. He was, my associate in touring and everything else. And so I just picture him saying these things and doing these things.
Yeah, did Juan, is that where you got Adonis's penchant for spitting out just completely ridiculous things that he takes as gospel fact?
I did that from a mix. So I mixed it with Juan, and then I used to live in Peru. And the Peruvian culture is just that way. They love their lemon juice. They love their things that just like, all you got to do is crack open an egg and put the eggshell. I mean, they have like the craziest ideas, and it's just hilarious to me. And I love that about this culture of like when you go into the sticks, the real poor areas of Mexico and other areas just where like they're just making up stuff, and it's just the funniest stuff. So yeah, I threw that in there with his,
It's awesome.
Yeah. That's so talk about some of the central themes and messages that are central to it, because I was really struck by it kind of touches on the vein that as human beings, no matter what happens and no matter what is going on anywhere, we will always have a unique way of creating separations and divisions among ourselves based on perceived class, based on perceived status, and things like that. But what are some of the other central themes and messages that you really wanted to convey from your book?
I mean, yes, I always love the resentment theme. The resentment theme is a killer one, where it's like we just have to resent somebody who's just slightly better than us in a status. Because the statuses in the Paradise Planets, there's not really that much differentiating them, but it's just the little things that are just enough to make them all feel like they're completely better than the status below them. And it's like, well, I get to eat this one other food group, or I get to sit in plusher chairs. I mean, it's like the most trivial stuff, but it's enough for them to feel like they are better as a people than the status below them. So I love the resentment theme. The idea that like, so the lower statuses will just resent the upper statuses. And then there's that, I mean, the envy and jealousy. There's also the theme of almost, which I think is a theme of my own life. The almost theme. The main character's name is Casi. In Spanish, Casi means almost. And so that's actually one of the integral integral is almost accomplishing things, almost getting the what you want, almost aligning things up, almost aligning the stars. I like the theme of almost, because I feel like we can relate to that more than we can relate to the big victorious star winner.
Yeah, there are definitely more of us almost
than
those that have.
and that's
But
that's what I wanted to hit on was that theme of almost, like the drive of the person who almost gets it over and over and over again, but still keeps trying.
that's, it's funny you bring that up because, like, and maybe as a creative, you probably may even go through this, but I have these moments where I have like ups and downs. Like there's one week where I wake up and I'm like, man, what the heck am I doing with myself? Like, this is the most, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm spending money on all this stuff. I have like, and it doesn't align with your creativity. You're like, okay, I have these creative ideas, but man, I feel like I'm just trying to swim through mud, and then you have those moments where something happens, or like I'm working on a song, and the way we write is I'll send out, like, I have other people that have their own studios, and so I'll send out a guitar track to this guy and he brings it back. Well, when it comes back, then I get all excited again, and it's like this roller coaster of ups and downs. And I forgot where I was going to go with this statement, but
The almost.
it was almost like, I always feel like I remember texting Matt the other day, or it was about a week or two ago, and I just said, man, why do I always feel like I never win anything, but I always get the honorable mention.
Yeah.
Theme of almost.
That's the thing is we have this mentality, like, for some reason we only acknowledge the hero, even in a Super Bowl. Let's say that you take the biggest sporting events, World Cup, the stars, their names, but what about the guy who was just on the sidelines as the second string for the biggest team in the world?
Right.
Kansas City Chiefs, second string quarterback who didn't play a single down.
Right. But but he went through a struggle to get there. There's a reason why he's on that team, and you don't hear that story at all.
And that guy, I mean, by all means, he would be considered a champion because he's got the Super Bowl ring and everything to prove it.
I think that the growth arc and the story arc of Kasi is a good one. It's solid, and it's really about facing that self-doubt and realizing, no, I'm good enough to do this on my own. I have this in me. And in fact, there's a quote at a pretty pivotal part of one of many pivotal parts of the story. It says, I expect you to become the best version of you, but that's something you can't do until you know who you are. That usually requires stumbling down a road of mistakes and acceptance until you discover the most natural, original person inside. Once you find that, you've got your foundation. In fact, It hit me so hard that I had gotten home from a drive, and I still had little less than half of the book to go, and but I was going to be back on the road, a couple of weekends later. I'm like, I'll finish it then, and it's like, nope, I'm going to finish it now. So I just had it on my phone, and it went everywhere around my apartment with me, listening to it. And I was standing there, and I stopped, and I kept backing it up because I wanted to grab my notebook and write it down. Because usually I grab the highlighter and I highlight that and make little margin notes in the book. But I had the audiobook, so now I've got to get the hard copy, and so I can go and mark it all through. And because I do plan on giving it a good, a traditional read through. But now I've got the characters' voices in my head. I've got all of the songs in my head, and it's not like when you read the Harry Potter books and you try really hard not to have Daniel Radcliffe's voice in your head the whole time. You're trying to, but that's synonymous with what it is. Well, I already know what they are, and that came straight from the source. So Well, the next track we're going to listen to is "Champion of My Dreams." Set this one up for us. What inspired you on this one?
I mean, it is an underdog song. This is the ultimate underdog song.
To listen to Shaun Barrowes' song, use the link provided in the description below.
All right, man. Good job.
Thank you.
"Champion of My Dreams" from the Paradise Planets album, available on Spotify, available across, I imagine you're on pretty much all of the platforms, aren't you, Shaun?
Yeah, I just went through, DistroKid or whatever else, and it went to
there's CD Baby or TuneCore or
they're all
feature
they go to all of them.
Even SoundCloud does it now, and Reverb Nation. But I was going to ask you. We have our own podcast playlist on Spotify called the Guest List, and I don't know if I asked you if you wanted these songs to be featured on. I'd be happy to put those on there too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Awesome.
wouldn't hurt, right? So
Yeah.
and speaking
We
of
legit
like
now, baby.
yeah,
Nice.
like he wasn't before.
No, I know.
Okay. So this is the premise of this it's obviously it's a book series, and you're working on a second one as of right now. But there's also music behind it. So it's like a musical. I'm trying to put these together. So it's almost like I would say it's like it's like written in a way that it's an audible. Like I keep thinking of back in the day when they used to have radio for entertainment. They didn't have TV, right? So
Yeah.
they told stories through radio.
The radio shows.
And-
Yep.
Right. So I keep thinking along those lines, but so it's like this music soundtrack that goes along with books. I haven't listened to the audio book yet, but Matt has, so I'm assuming some of these songs are inside that audio
well,
series.
and specifically, it's like they are part of the
Right, okay.
specific
It's like a
song is part
musical.
of the story. Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
a book musical. But then on top of that, you wrote your own language for this book too, didn't you?
Yeah.
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 So the only other author I know that kind of did that was J.R. Tolkien,
Yeah.
and with the Elven language. And I just thought, wow, I was telling some of my coworkers about this episode, and I was so pumped about it. I'm like, this guy, like the more I dug into you as far as research is, the more I was like, holy cow, like this guy does everything, you know? And I just want to say it's pretty cool. So are you fluent in the language that you wrote?
Not yet. I would say I
Give
definitely
us
need-
something. Give us a phrase. Give us something, man.
I'd have to pull it up and read it. Let me try it. I'll do that. Here's the most recent. Let me see. So I just barely created. It's easier to sing it than to speak
Oh,
it.
okay.
And I actually posted a little clip of that just recently of
I
me
think I
singing
might have
it.
seen it.
Let me see if I can pull this up really fast. So I have a linguist that I work with on this. So I'd say that yes, we both kind of write it, but it's she definitely helps me a ton. Let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, so like we just barely did a new song for book 2. Let me see if I can remember exactly how to pronounce it. I flituna dimin li raginoi nayat. You got Yegezushu, Az Bumiju, Bene Muabe Jukat, Mati Lenuna, Tuvi Shoho Nayat, Ibudram in Quine Taman Az Ajitat. That's like the chorus of one of the most recent songs. And I sing a piece of this. It's not that one. Let me see if the part that I sing.
So on the language part of it, do you have like a decoder pin that comes with it? Or like, do you have like, how do you discern, how does a listener discern what you're saying? Like, do you have, are you going to include like a dictionary with that?
Yeah,
Or...
I have posted a full, well, I've kind of debated on whether that's going to go in the book or just on the website. Right now it's on the website. If you go to the website, the full dictionary and glossary and all the cadence and everything else, the full grammar explanation is the breakdown of the language is in there. So you can read
what's the
through it.
website? So that you guys
Paradise
know.
Planets. So I'll make it more prominent, but paradiseplanets.com. I posted it in the blog, and I
Okay.
need to post it like a little bit more prominently. But if you go to, let me see. Yeah, you have to kind of find it now. So let me see how far down it is now. I need to make it more prominent because a lot of people have been asking me about that, and I haven't really made it as big of a priority as I need to. Let's see where it's going to be. You have to dig through the.
So eventually you're just going to create like your own page, a sub page for it where they can just click on it and go
Right.
straight to. Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, you might be onto something, dude. Like there might be some people out there that learn this language that have the one up on everybody else. They can talk in front of people.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'll learn some so I just so I can come and harass you at cons, man.
There you go. Do it. I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we pulled from a lot of different languages, and my favorites. I was trying to go from ancient languages because I wanted to pull from like the ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew and Sumerian and then go to like ancient Mayan, and then some of the like Maori and some of these old islander languages. So we pulled from a lot of different languages. And in the beginning, I was actually trying to study and learn fluent ancient Greek, and I was taking this class for Greek, not modern day Greek, but yeah, ancient Greek, and it was a bit much for me to do all at the same time as I was writing the book, which is why I brought in another linguist to help me out with it. But what I was doing was, as I was studying all these different languages, I would just find the word that I fit the best, and that would flow the best, and I put it in this list of words. And so that was the first thing that I did, was compile the vocabulary, and then from there, she helped me figure out the grammar, how to create the phrasings and things. And so yeah, it's been a process, but it's been a lot of fun to create this thing.
That is, it's completely, I'm awestruck by it. Like I actually think it's just absolutely amazing that you did that, man. So
thanks.
For this world, and this is what I'm talking about when I say that the world building is so absolutely vivid. Created a new sport, but it's a sport based on how well you can sing. And there's there's technology, sci-fi technology that plays into that, and why and it's incorporated. But it's a physical sport where they're kicking and throwing a disc around underwater and trying to get them through these gates. So there's goalies and there's forwards and there's strategy, and I can see the playing field in my head. And I'm a fan of the Blue Kraken. So
nice.
I mean,
so book two is going to have more sports. There's actually a couple of new ones in addition to the Aquasfera. I hinted at them in book one, but you're going to see a lot more of the Abyss, and the ship races as well. You're going to see exactly how they train for the ship races and how
and these were things that as soon as the story ended, I'm like, the story ends, and then I'm like, and then epilogue. I'm like, oh yes, please. And that epilogue is a lot longer than you expect it to be. It really moves the story forward and sets it up for the sequel. But I will say, you left it off in a very unexpected place for me. It's in a very it's a cliffhanger, but it's a very unconventional cliffhanger in my opinion. Yeah. Like I thought that was very interesting how you did that.
Nice.
But it's definitely like, and then what? And
yep. So that's why it's good that book two is now done. I'm reading through it now as like the final read through with the editor's notes, and so like book two is 99% there, doing the last 1% right now.
Well, and when do you have a projection of that being released?
I mean,
do you have like an ETA or
we're doing the pre-orders right now on Kickstarter, so like it'll be mailed out in November. So I'm mailing them out in November so that they're there in time for Christmas.
Perfect.
With plenty of time there. So
I'm one of your backers on Kickstarter. I will be getting my signed paperback because for me, my hardcovers are for show. My paperbacks are for reading because I will mark the hell out of them, and I will. Good. So, so now, what kind of a time frame do you are you having? What about the audiobook? Will you release the book and then start working on production of the audiobook for the sequel?
Yeah, I know that it takes me at least 3 months to really get the full production down. I mean, I have to get all the voice actors, all their parts. There's a lot of back and forth there to get their lines all right. It's always corrections, new reads, and things like that I have to have them do.
Will the original voice cast be returning for this one? Oh, good.
Oh yeah, of course. All the same. We're not replacing anybody. We're just adding new characters. And there was a couple actors that voiced multiple characters in book one. And so I'm going to have them do their better of the voices and then add in a few more to take the other roles. So we're going to add even more actors this time around. So yeah, I have to compile all the voices. I have to edit it all up. And then I have to add the sound effects. That takes, quite a bit of time. And then, of course, the musical score. And I have to finish the album.
You're kind of a one-man show when it comes to this book stuff.
Yeah,
I know you have help, but you're under your direction, so you do a lot of the editing stuff too. I'm assuming with the audiobooks.
And you're a true Renaissance man, Shaun. I mean,
Thank you.
is there one medium that you find connects most with your soul, whether that's the songwriting, the singing, the book? Is there one that, like, if you had to choose one and lose the ability to do the others, is there one that you can definitively say that you would choose?
A good question. Let's see. Interesting. I wonder if, like, to dive into it deeply, I would say I'd want to still always be a storyteller. First and foremost, telling the story. Like, I just tell the story in different mediums, but in the end, I think no matter what, I'd always want to be a storyteller.
Right. Yeah.
And you
I,
know
I
what?
could agree to that.
Seeing your body of work and seeing, what you're up to now, I have no doubt that you would still find a way to sing the story in parts if you needed to, and that music just kind of seems to surround you. So,
Are you
Yeah.
doing other stuff with music, or is it just kind of all of your focus with your creative writing process? And, like, do you do collaborations with other artists? Because you have a rap sheet with, like, that seems to be a mile long, working with other artists and stuff. Do you still do those sort of things, or are you kind of taking a break from that? Okay.
I don't do it as heavily, but I am always doing, like, I compose for film, so there's always a film that comes across my slate, and I go in there and I'll score that. Right now, I just there's a new YouTube group that asked me if I could do something similar to what I did with the Ninja Kids, and that's like more kids stuff. And it's a good outlet just because I want more content for my kids and stuff. So there's always a fun way to tie that in and elevate that style of music, because a lot of it's not very good. There's always a lot of those out there where I'm also helping another guy write his book. So I've got like for the writing side, I'm doing quite a bit of that. But yeah, music wise, I'm performing still. I still do my stories from the piano is kind of another, like, performance outlet. So when I do my keynotes, I'm still singing in my keynotes, and so it's a musical keynote, so I get to perform music, and I'm showcasing my originals in those. Like,
yep, that's like another Da Vinci Approach idea. Like,
yeah,
I love it, man. Like, it's great. Like, I can't say that I've ever heard of a keynote speaker that just performs on a piano while he's giving his speech. Like, that's freaking brilliant. Cool.
Right.
So where can we mentioned that you have the DaVinciCode.com. Is that right? The Da Vinci Approach. Sorry,
he couldn't get the copyright to the Da Vinci Code. It was already taken.
It was a brain slip. I apologize.
Yeah.
So you have the DaVinciApproach.com. You also have ParadisePlanets.com. That's the book series. You're also on, what other socials are you on too? You're on Facebook and Instagram, I'm assuming.
I'm on all.
Okay.
I'm on all of them. I do mostly on TikTok, Instagram, some on Facebook, but I think TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are where most of the action is right now.
Awesome.
So I'll post shorts, and I post on Instagram and TikTok as well. So same, just my name, Shaun Barrowes, or there's the pages for the Paradise Planets. There's also pages for the Da Vinci Approach. I have them for all three, so you can find me in all those formats.
I have one last question for you, and it's just something we just introduced to the show, but I wanted to ask, given your extensive experience, what advice would you give to an aspiring artist or creator about maintaining creativity and innovation in their work?
I think the biggest thing is making sure that you're always creative in the other aspects of your life. And I don't even mean just business side. I think it's important to be creative in your health and fitness, in making friends, in dating. Be creative in how you date. I think it's important to be creative. I feel like if you're going to do a thing, do it creatively, because you're already going to do it anyway. Why waste time doing it not creatively? Doing it the old boring way. It's like eating oatmeal every single day for the rest of your life. I mean, I just feel like you could do more with that. Might as well learn how to make a good omelet. And explore different omelets and other things that you could do for breakfast or whatever it is. Same thing with I feel like that by having that creative outlet in your life, that aspect of it somehow frees your mind a little bit more, so that when you are doing the more intense creative stuff, you're more free still. There's something about, like, doing creative work for a living that puts pressure on it. And then suddenly you're making music under pressure, you know? And you need to have an outlet that is not under pressure to balance the stuff that is under pressure. So I feel like that balance comes from being creative in other aspects of your life where there are no wrong answers and there's no expectations. You can just do whatever you want, you know?
So it's like,
Words to live by,
awesome. Those great advice. Yeah. Don't settle for settling.
That's right.
Exactly.
All right, man. All right. Well, we have one more song. We have one more song we want to introduce before we.
And now this one opens with a gorgeous trumpet solo. And as a trumpet player, I've got to say, man, whoever threw that down has my love and respect, because it's just his tone is gorgeous, it is such a gorgeous way to. It's the way every song should open, in my opinion. But I am biased. So this is Supernova. So who's providing the instrumentation on this? What's the lineup and kind of what led you to write this one? Because I mean, I know very well how it ties into the story, but we don't want to spoil the story for the people.
As far as the story goes, I mean, they always talk about going supernova as a singer. There are on the Sonopack, which is like the big backpack, they're like a jetpack that they have on their back that they power with their voice. There are 5 sonoluminescent bulbs, which is a real science. That's nuclear fusion. And so the stronger your voice, the more bulbs you power. And most siren athletes can only power 2, 3, or 4. It's very rare to power 5 and go supernova. So this song is about going supernova.
Lighting them all up. Light them up.
Light them up. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's play this Supernova from the Paradise Planet book series.
To listen to Shaun Barrowes' song, use the link provided in the description below.
Right, Supernova, Shaun Barrowes, the Paradise Planets album. I can't say enough great things about it, man. I mean, we've talked a lot about we've focused most of our time talking about the book, but it really is. There are so many layers and there's so many aspects to this. Because I didn't even get a touch on the fact that there is a ton of obviously Polynesian influence in this book, Asian culture influence in this book. There's, worldwide. There's world culture, incorporated into this. But not only that, he's this other language, Evaik, but also slang for that time period of people that call each other cha and they have accent, the Evayan accent that she has to try to hide, so they speak a little bit differently from the Gaians, and it's just there's so many aspects to it, man. Friends, get yourself a copy, do yourself a favor. It's a lot of fun, and you know what? Yeah, it is a young adult, dystopian future novel, and there are aspects that you can obviously draw from. There's sports, there's this, there's that, but there's parallels with a lot of really damn great book series. So it's like, yes, there is a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And if you aren't made up of what influenced you in the first place, then you're fake. So
I know, of course. There's no escaping that. There's not originality just basically means taking that level of everybody else, combining it all together and adding your 1%, It's kind of really all it is.
Ultimately all music is taking the same 8 notes and rearranging them.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's what
I can tell you right now. This is something that Matt has been really excited about. He's a book worm.
Yeah.
And so I knew he was going to geek out tonight, and he's doing everything he can to contain himself from like totally just. He could probably talk to you for hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like in fact, I have a little sticky note like right here on the mirror behind my monitor that says "Don't fanboy too much."
Nice, that's great.
Yeah,
it's a little reminder.
That's great. I mean, the thing is, it's you're right, because that's the beauty about a book and music, because both of those things create that emotion, that attachment, and so when you combine the two, where it's like we're getting both fronts. We're getting the story that draws you into the world, and then we're also getting the musical emotion. And that's what I wanted to do is find, I mean, even like the books that have ever come out that had album to go with them, they didn't quite hit it for me. Like none of them really like resonated where it's like, oh, that that was like exactly what I was hoping for. You know, in most, I mean, that's because in every case, the author and the composer are two different people, and they didn't quite get the vision. You know, it's not like Howard Shore and Peter Jackson and Lord of the
Not
Rings.
like Tim Burton and Danny Elfman.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of synergy is really hard to come by, and I've never seen it in a book yet. So I just decided to be the author and the composer. Then you can't really, you can't go wrong
Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde, or Dr. Hyde and Mr. I don't know, what is it? I don't
Mr.
even know, but I
Jekyll.
know you.
Mr. Hyde and Mr. Jekyll.
So let's
Dr. Hyde.
fast forward a
Yeah.
little bit. Let's see. So
Yeah,
that you.
Sorry, I messed you up.
So the book's out. You get the audio book for the sequel done. It comes out. Do you have plans on like releasing another straight music album? Coming from of you crooning for us, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, outside of the book,
Yeah.
not really. Like I've got, because the book is going to be. I mean, this book series is 5 books, which means
Okay.
5 albums. So I got 5 books, 5 albums. So once I'm done with all those, then maybe I'll do another one. But I mean, it's 5 albums is a lot of work.
Well,
as
are
it
you
is.
doing a whole album of like with the
5
language that you created too?
Do you want to do that where it's exclusively that I haven't
Right.
yet, where all the songs right now feature the choir singing in Evaic. So
Right.
they'll do an Evaic chant.
Oh, okay, cool.
So like
That makes sense.
The new single that I'm releasing with book 2, there's an isolated section where you just hear it in Evaic. It's the chorus in full harmony in Evaic. And so I'm actually introducing that a little bit more with the second album. But still, man, because it's a new language, I feel like it's going to be hard for someone to really appreciate a full album of Evaic, but I do want to do that at some point.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, like I can understand that. It would almost be like, traveling and just turning on the radio, some international country and not really know what language is, just listening to it, which is cool. But yeah, so this book, you can find these online on Amazon. What other places do they sell? I guess wherever they sell books. Do you have hard copies they sell like at Barnes and Noble and those kind of places too? So
yeah,
you're published everywhere.
Yeah, it's any website, whether it's Walmart.com or Target.com or whatever else, they all have it. You can always go to my website and get a signed copy still right now on ParadisePlanets.com. So there, we do sell those as well. We ship those out ourselves, and so we still have that option. But yeah, Amazon is where most people go to buy the book, and it's the fastest way to get it. So that is probably the best way. Most libraries will have it too. Like you can go to a library, and if they don't have it in the library, you can always request it, and they can get it there.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, I guess this is probably where we'll just part and say thanks for being on the show. And anything else you want to plug before we say goodbye?
That sounds great. I mean, thanks so much for tuning in. This is great.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So
yes,
remember everybody, the DaVinciApproach.com, the ParadisePlanets.com, and you can find Shaun on social media all over the place. So he's not hard to find. So definitely worth looking up. And I'm eagerly awaiting my signed paperback. I will dig in and I will seriously probably take a couple of days off work and just. All right. Now we got to get the audiobook. So thanks for your time, man. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Right, we'll see you.
Ride the tide, Cha.
Right, ride the tide.